Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Perspectives YYC. Today we have a bit of a unique recording. I got to sit down today with four amazing Calgarian entrepreneurs: Alkarim Devani of Round Square, Richard de Los Reyes of Goat Shop, Brett McDermott of Our Daily Bread and Salon Catering, Pete Emes, world-renowned DJ, and the owner-operator of Hi-Fi Club, Commonwealth, Home and Away. We sat down to discuss where they came from, what it took for them to get where they were, and where we ought to go in the future in our city. What struck me was their sense of gratitude, their humility, and their dedication to working hard to build this city into, my hope as well, a cultural hotspot. And the talk was really inspiring for me, and I hope you'll find it inspiring for you too. Send us some feedback. Subscribe, a like, a comment. Just let us know how we're doing and how we can continue to work together to keep this change going.
Cold out, you take my coat. For when you lock up and walk out, I found sweet silence in your face. I found sweet silence in your place. Oh, you send me so hard, baby. You're such a gracious one. Send me something in the
Maybe we can start the mic check by just introducing ourselves, and we'll go around the room, and
Cool.
we'll start with Al.
Yeah, so my name is Alkarim Devani from Round Square.
My name is Brett McDermott from Our Daily Bread.
I'm Richard de Los Reyes from Goat Shop.
And I'm Pete Emes from Small Town DJs and Hi-Fi Club, Commonwealth, Home and Away.
My name is David, I guess Yan, but I wanted to invite everybody here today because you're all kind of interesting and neat and successful and fascinating to talk about where we are today as a city. So maybe if I can get an idea of like how it all started. How did you become a developer, get into food, get into style, and get into music?
I'll start because my story is probably not as interesting as these guys. So I'm a born and raised Calgarian, so I grew up here. I've lived here my entire life. I've never lived anywhere else, so kind of through and through. So I know a lot of the guys around the table. I've had the opportunity to be around them and consider them friends and peers. But at one point, like I used to stand in line for Hi-Fi because Pete was very dedicated to not allowing to let anyone jump the line or pay the bouncers. And so, I used to stand in Pete's lines for hours to get into that club because it was always like the coolest place. And born on the east side of Calgary, kind of in the northeast. I was southeast in Dover, eventually moved to the northeast. And I got my real estate license right out of high school. Started sitting show homes, getting paid hourly for that while I was going to university, and eventually got my marketing degree from U of C. Once I did that, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go work for someone, and I tried. So my dad actually had worked at CP Rail his entire life for like 35 years, and they offered me a job. So I went there for 2 weeks, and I felt terrible because like I think they talk about their training program costing like $50,000 per employee. And so they really like invest in that. And so I did it for 2 weeks. And then I was like, sorry guys, like it's not for me. And I was like, just realized like I couldn't go and work for someone else. I had too many other aspirations. And so I joined my brother's company. He was building homes. And then we just talked about like, hey, like there seems to be this movement towards coming back to the city. Like the inner city looks really cool. There's no architectural controls. Maybe we can do something creative. And so I spent the last decade almost building kind of single family homes within the inner city. And in the last 3 years, we realized we didn't want to be selling $1 million homes to, the one percenters. And so we kind of pivoted again and moved towards a multifamily mixed use development company. And now we'll do 200 homes and close to 40,000 square feet of commercial in the next 2 years in Calgary. We have operations now in Winnipeg as well. And so it's funny how things have evolved for us. And I think for me personally, when you find your passion and you really find your drive and what you love to do, I think like many of the guys around us, it doesn't feel like work anymore. And so I'm privileged to feel like, I'm super passionate about this city, the city that gave my parents their first kind of opportunity. And, I'm so excited about helping it grow and being a part of the culture. And for me personally now, it's more about placemaking than it is even about homes. Like, it's about finding ways to make people interact and how to create amazing spaces that, all walks of life can enjoy.
Thanks, Al. Brett?
Yeah, so I guess mine started back in university. I went to St. Mary's in Halifax, and my first entrepreneurial venture was throwing parties, and we would bring out DJs, and Pete was one of them at one time. And I got back to Calgary in 2008 and didn't know what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to go into advertising, but there was quite the downturn at that time, and so I ended up working in sales. Worked for Xerox at one point, and never loved my day jobs, but I worked for a catering company on the side, and that was kind of my one constant over a few years. And when I decided to quit my day job in sales and then go into food full time, I was really excited, and I did that for 4 months, and then the place that I was working at had a fire, and all of a sudden I was jobless, so I had to figure out what to do. And so this opportunity arose where I started private chefing, and so I was doing that, and it was great, and kind of catering on the side as well, and I just started building it from there. And I think any time you do something entrepreneurial in Calgary, everyone's like super supportive, and they really help you out and spread the word. And it's been almost 5 years with our brick and mortar store, and then we branched off salon catering last year to separate the two, and it's been a pretty wild ride so far.
This is Richard, and how I got into the industry was a necessity for myself. It was kind of just doing my friends' family's hair as just being a young person. When we were young people, we were playing sports, whatnot, hanging out with your pals and stuff like that. Instead of going to a barbershop, we would kind of just pocket our money, and I would be that person who ended up doing each other's hair. I never really knew that really stuck with me, and that was really with me as much as it was until I got a little bit older. But playing sports and just being around those group of friends, knowing that what I did helped them carry themselves differently. I never knew that I was that person that helped that happen. Never knew that was so much part of what made me tick and what made me do what I was doing, or wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to continue doing that. And so here I am now. Yeah, here I am now.
And Pete?
What's up? This is Pete. So I'm also born and raised in Calgary. Started DJing when I was a youngster because I was so obsessed with taking over the music in any situation. So at house parties or hall parties, and that was in the early '90s. And then I went away to school at UWO in London. Started to get more into the music and DJing while I was out there at school, making a little money on the side. Got to see a bunch of different artists that I probably wouldn't have had the chance to see if I was out here. A lot of DJs from Detroit and Chicago would come through London on their way up to Toronto. So we would see guys like Derek Carter and Frankie Knuckles and guys like that, Juan Atkins, some of the seminal house and techno guys from out there. So really got the bug and wanted to get turntables. Couldn't afford them as a student, but would just started collecting records, and I would go over to other people's houses and try to get on the decks as much as I could. So really caught the bug out there, and then finished school, and I got a science degree. I'm actually a geologist by training. Came back to work in that field in Calgary in the late 90s, and started DJing out here around the same time, and eventually in 99 got a job DJing at the Night Gallery with my partner Mike, and that was the first time we DJ'd together. We connected on a bunch of the same music and same records that we'd been collecting. so that went really well off the bat. It was a great scene down at the night gallery. Like Calgary was kind of seemed a lot smaller network, smaller scene at that time in '99, and loved that place. Like the night gallery to me is like still the best venue in the history of Calgary. So we kind of built it up from there, and in 2003 we ended up opening up a record store and clothing store called Giant 45, which lasted close to 10 years. And then in 2005 the night gallery was kind of tailing off a little bit. It was on its last legs, and we decided we either had to move the night we were doing or open up our own place. So we decided to go with that. We kind of on a shoestring. We threw our money together and opened Hi-Fi in 2005. Yeah, it was basically our home base. We wanted a place to play our records and to bring in shows that we like. That worked out well as well. And rolling on from there, we opened Commonwealth 2011 and Home and Away in 2015. And as Al said, we love I love Calgary. I love the city, and I've had some opportunities to move over the years, but feel like the people here and the energy here is just one that's infectious, and love being here.
What are your guys' thoughts about finding that spark of needing to do something for yourselves, and maybe the relationship that it has with the city?
I'll take this one first. This city has even before talking about the city, I think my mother has I think all of our parents has done a lot for us to be here, and I think we need to show a little bit more gratitude towards those people, because they've sacrificed a lot for us to do what we get to do and how we get to do it. They've provided us choice, and that's what we get to do here in Canada, let alone in Calgary. And Calgary is my home. I need to be happy with where my feet are, because I can make it as good or as great or as shit as I make it. It's really up to me, and I do have that choice, and have to for myself. I really feel like I need to do myself right, my family right, and not take those things for granted. So that there's my choice, and I just really want to give back to the city the way it's given back to me. Like it's raised me, it's given me my family, it's given me my friends. That's a beautiful thing, and I want to help create some of that. And when you said that, you touched on the arts. I think I used to once view myself as a artist. I used to view myself as an artist, but I think that's also a word that is overused a little bit, right? And it's not that I don't think of myself as creating stuff, but like that's just it. I consider myself to be more of a creative than an artist, and I'll let like those true artists really hold that title. And being able to be a creative, I think, helps artistry live. I hope to be a strong helping hand to art being created here in the city. So that's why I kind of do it here in the city.
I agree with you on that 100%. And I feel like what you're kind of also alluding to is like a support network. And that's I just did a panel a couple weeks ago with Mandy Stobo and a couple of other artists that were talking about basically operating in a boomtown like Calgary. To me, the support network extends even further in that, because we're in Calgary, and there's traditionally a strong economy here. I've always felt like we can operate here and have more support than we would in potentially in a bigger city where there's more competition. And so I feel like as far as Calgarians supporting the arts and supporting the creatives, I mean, it works well because there's generally a high standard of living. People can afford to support things that they choose, and so I think that's been a huge factor as to us enjoying some success here for sure.
Just quickly before Brett jumps in, the weird thing I think for me is, at least at my tier, when I meet visual artists, especially, they get the opposite impression, which is not to say that Calgary doesn't inherently have spending money, but that the concept, for example, of buying a local artist's mural or supporting an artist in a visual sense, they don't get a positive feedback, at least by reputation. I just talked to a painter who told me that a gallery owner said that there are these caps, even in booms in Calgary, that the fine artists can't sell. Like in Toronto, a painting could sell for $100,000, but in Calgary, apparently that cap is closer to 25 or 30, allegedly. I mean, these are not worlds that I live in, of course, but it's interesting just to throw that out there because I feel like, I don't know, Brett, I mean, we'll jump in because Brett definitely had something to say, but how is it in the food industry? And like, is it the same as music where you're feeling that kind of more measured support here?
Yeah, I think, everyone's a foodie these days. So I think, we enjoy a great quality of life here, and as such, people are pretty well traveled, and so they've gone to other cities. They've tried different restaurants, and so when there's new exciting restaurants in Calgary, people are very supportive of them, and it's a small scene definitely, but some of the restaurants here are world class. Really small scene, but yeah, everyone gets behind it, and I think once you're in it for a while too, like, and you've had a good experience, you want to do more places and, just spread it around. So
quickly, I wonder too, like speaking to you guys, what the role of, let's say, business and commercialization and, how do we combine those things? Because it seems like maybe you're all a little bit better at seeing the merging point between those than someone like me who's making a print magazine that I try to make myself every day. I mean, is there a business strategy aspect or perspective that's required to survive as an artist here?
When I look around this table, I mean, I see three guys who are really strong on both sides, on the business side and the creative side, and to me, that oftentimes equates to the best success in across, no matter what industry you're in. So I feel like when you're operating in the arts or whatever industry, if you're able to be business minded as well, then you're going to have a higher chance of success. It's not always strictly about unless you're some kind of like creative genius whose work is so unreal that you can kind of like rise above and rise above all the noise, then that's a different thing. But 99% of the people are not operating like that. And so, I think that it's a balance, and it's a difficult balance, and it's one that we all struggle with because, we've all got a million ideas, running around in our head, and it's a way of like, capturing those like capturing lightning in a bottle and like trying to rein it in and trying to turn it into some kind of product that you can market.
Yeah, and I think like Pete nails it on the head. Like I've had the opportunity to work with artists on larger scales. Like even when you think about the architectural field, like architects are artists in nature. They're leaving footprints and buildings behind, and they're all very particular about that. So I think the one thing about artistry that's interesting though is, like Pete said, you see an artist who's defined to hustle and realizes like, okay, I have to get paid. I have to feed mouths. I'm not just stuck in my artistry. Like I'm not just going to do it the way that I always want to do it. And I think that's what you're talking about is a missing point. Like if I paint a painting and I think it's worth X, but market won't give me X, well, then I have to go back to my expectations. That's what I do in the business world. So when I produce something and I say, hey, I want you to lease this space or I want you to buy this space because it's worth X to me, unfortunately, like I can't hold steady on that price because I have a business to run. And if market proves and demands it's not worth X, I reallocate my expectations. I think for myself, what I've tried really hard to do though is continue to build culture. And I think the artists are an important part of culture. And I think the city does recognize it, although, turbulent at times. And I think like Rich is an artist in his own right. He's a placemaker. He creates vibrant communities. He gives people a better feeling about themselves. And so I think, when you think about that word and its impact, and you talk about the work that Brett's done in the food industry and what Pete's done in the music industry, it's like, I think all of us probably have so many friends that have left, and they leave because they feel like there's lack of opportunity, or there's more opportunity somewhere else. And there's some creatives that I don't know, like Tung is a really good example for me. One of the most inspiring designers that I know, and he was making us all custom leather jackets. Like, we all would walk into his shop and Tung would make us a custom leather piece, and we would all be super stoked. But maybe that wasn't right for Calgary. And I would say, in his case, he was like decades ahead of his time, not only for Calgary, for like globally. Tung was doing stuff that was so inspiring. So then he goes into a bigger city and he takes his skill set and they eat it up. And that's just numbers sometimes, right? Like you go to a city like Vancouver or Toronto, you think about the population and where they're at and what they're doing and what their disposable income. Sometimes you can't compete with that. But I think for myself and I think around here, part of the beauty is like actually being the catalyst in our cities. Like, what Pete's done for the music scene is in our city is like profound. Like, that will always be, known. And I think that's true legacy. When you talk about something like that, Pete could have left. He probably could have been successful with Mike somewhere else, but they decided to stay and really like bring something to our city that, could have been somewhere else. And so when you see them help and bring our city along, and like Sled Island and all the things that they've really contributed on, it's something that we all should be really proud for. And I think we do see people starting to collaborate and really give back. And I know for us too, like, the city is starting to bring us with them. And especially in times when the economy starts to struggle. And, we were fortunate to have that just yesterday. We just announced a joint partnership with the city of Calgary, which will be our largest project ever.
Congrats on that, by the way.
Thanks, man. And and for me, it was like I was literally in awe, like, that we got that opportunity, and it was like back to the place that my parents first came to Canada in Calgary and accepted us, and now I get to go back and add value in that community. And so I can't say enough about the city, and I think if you're doing with intention and with a business framework, I think there's still so much opportunity.
I was just the Central Library, which is incredible, first of all, and they had a citizenship announcement, and I walked by these tables of all these families who are so happy because of all the work they put in, but also to join the community here. And for me, being an exodus from Toronto and like reestablishing my life here, I love this city. Like you said, the support, the moment I said I would try to do something different, everybody's trying to give me some direction or something. And so there's definitely something culture, I feel like, in my experience anyways, that's different in Calgary. But I wonder too, I guess my two thoughts, Al, or everybody, I should say, one was Kyle and I were having a pre-chat, and apparently a cynical person said that with the population density of Canada in general, we can't have culture here because there's just too few people, which I think is offensive. But from a marketability, sustainability, and business mind, is there something to that? And secondly, kind of through that question, as entrepreneurs, was there something that had to happen for you as creatives to assume the business mind, or do you feel like you always had a business approach even at the beginning?
I think I actually don't remember what the first meal was, but I actually cooked a lot of vegetarian food back in the day because my wife was vegetarian, and I ended up getting hired to cook for a bunch of yoga retreats, which allowed me to travel, and that kind of dictated kind of the style of cooking that I do. And then the same week that I decided to quit my day job and to go into food, I found out I was celiac. And this was like 10 years ago, I guess, that I found that out. And so that also kind of dictated how I had to cook. And so the whole approach was like, how can we make great food, but not call it like gluten-free or whatever. It just happens to be gluten-free. It's like calling a salad vegan. But I think on the business side, I did a business degree, but I'm definitely learning more now than I ever did. I got a D in my entrepreneurship class. I think once you're in it, and like I've had a bookkeeper since day one, and I've worked closely with her on the numbers, and but once you take on debt and things become very real. Yeah. It's like do or die. So
I think I'm the most in the biggest infancy stage out of the group here. I've been dealing with a lot. Like I'm not a business minded person, but I've quickly become one. I know that my passions and my wants and what I want to give back, my general output, comes from a legit place. And it's not that I'm like being just whimsical and thinking that will carry me and I'll be fine. I'm a little bit wiser than that, but I also do think that real sees real, right? And you put your hearts, you put your passion into it, you do things with sincerity, and people take notice of those things. Do you need to keep your books? Do you need to understand what's going on and understand the ebbs and flows of what's going down? Yeah, 100%. But that also involves that group that surrounds you and who you surround yourself with, right? Who you let in. I think I've early in my development, in my shop, I've had a lot of people giving me input on what to do, what not to do. And I think that there has been the strong helping hand for me to be here right now.
Right. I think we touched on that a little bit before we started recording, but for us, when you start out, as an entrepreneur and you're working on your own business, it's a really small operation. You're really nimble. You're really grinding and hustling to get things going, and then the more it grows, the more it becomes about relationships and teams and building those teams and having the right people working with you and working for you, because that's everything. They're basically your proxy and so they need to understand your core values, and they need to understand what you're trying to achieve and what your goals are. And from my standpoint, like, those are the closest people to me in the world, because they're basically representing us so closely that they have to. To me, it's super important that you have the right people working with you and working for you, because otherwise, you're not. You're just, it's become more clear to me that's otherwise you're not going to have success, because there's just too many aspects of the business that need to be taken care of and need to be addressed in the way that you would do it. I
want to add to that, but going back to the one comment that you made about culture and the city's lack thereof, I think that shit is just bullshit. And then you got to call that out when you can. There's too many haters on this city that always talk about oh, well, Calgary this, Calgary that. We have a Muslim mayor. We were one of the first cities in the world to have a Muslim mayor. Our cultural demographic mix is absolutely profound when you actually go and look through it. You talk about the Central Library, you talk about the National Music Center. We're investing in real public infrastructure, and we continue to have look around the table. We have a really, really strong cultural fabric. And I think for people to say, oh, well, the population doesn't go drive down 17th Avenue Southeast. It's so easy to feel, and it's just the fact that I think people like to paint brushes and really not dig in. And so to me, that gets me really frustrated at times, because we are a very progressive city. We're moving in the right direction, and we have good leaders in place, from a political perspective, that are willing to go to bat right now for some of those progressive changes. And the one thing that a lot of people don't understand is change takes time. Copenhagen did not become Copenhagen overnight. Jan Gehl first shut down the first street in Copenhagen that was shut down to vehicles was over 55 years ago. So you think about they got to where they are now with their cycle infrastructure. So those changes take a very long time. But you can't stop fighting that fight, because it doesn't happen overnight. The one thing that Pete did say that I think is really important too is as an entrepreneur, and obviously Rich being early, when you start, I'm sure Brett and even Pete feel this, you're the one doing everything when you start, and you're the workhorse. Like, you are putting in everything, every role, every position that you can, and you're really an operator. And what starts to happen is you recognize that you can't do it all by yourself anymore, and so you go out and you try to find this team that can help you achieve your goals and continue to help you grow your company, and really finding what you do well. Like, what that's the thing for me is, like, I know I'm not good at certain things, and I know there are people that are better than me at so many things in our business. And so we have this term that we were starting to throw around about how those guys are mentoring up. Like, I'm learning from them. We hire these people and they're teaching me. And I think that's something that we've always talked about in our teams and in our hiring processes, is like, bring your value, bring your personality to the table, because it's so important. And, as a leader, one of the things that we talk about too is, like, we delegate and then we elevate. And so I'm never threatened. A lot of times you'll hear people, and we try to teach this corporately for our culture, is like, don't ever be threatened if someone can take what you're doing, because if they can, that means that you can now go and find another opportunity to elevate yourself. There's this book that I've read. It's really changed my perspective on business, and I think it's really going to help me, our firm, grow. It's called Traction. And really all it's about is really defining, like, expectations and how to find the right team and what you want from people, because I think that becomes the most challenging thing. And I know for me, and I think I hear it with a lot of entrepreneurs, is like, we got into this for the love of something else, and we want to operate, we want to continue to operate, we want to get in deep, but then you realize, like, you stagnate yourself in growth. And so if we can't find the right people or attract the right people, getting to that next level, it becomes extremely challenging.
In response, I mean, is there something about surviving as a business and then wanting to do something exciting and creative that are naturally at odds that you guys feel that you're bringing together? So, in other words, like we're talking about, is the Calgary Central Library such a beautiful building, but
The Calgary Tower is a nice one too.
Calgary Tower. Outside of my normal shit talking the Calgary Tower, just because I'm from Toronto and I'm an asshole. We did one of those city underground tours where you get to pick a space, and we went underneath, and there's a train station under there because it used to be a commuter thing. And we got to go inside, and it's actually kind of like a silo.
My grandma used to work there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I don't know why they don't. That should just be a tourist site, man. They still have all the original things.
I used to go there when I was a kid.
But no, I don't know. I mean, I was talking to one artist, and she was talking about how she got shortlisted. She got shortlisted, and then the eventual design got picked by a corporate committee, and they went for something safe. So part of that becomes a patience issue, like speaking to this idea of short game, long game, and how we keep picking away to develop what we hope will be the end game culture of Calgary. But, for example, anybody, like food, hair, music, condominiums, if the market bears something really drab and boring, is like, where's that cut line where you're like, okay, I'll cut 50 bobs this week, but maybe one person will come in and let me do something fucking legit with their head, because that grind and that business mentality, at least personally, I'm lacking that. I'm 41, but I'm a petulant, I feel like I'm 12 essentially right now. And so how you're describing approaching work, or like all of your actual descriptions where you guys start off, resonate with me, because I feel like I'm getting stretched out now to the point where I can't even stand up in the morning because I'm running a bunch of stuff. But B, like, I don't want to give in and ask what the market wants and like produce a magazine for, that will sell necessarily at chapters. Like, I still want to do something that's about artists that are in the city, but not many people are buying it. So is that a patience issue, or is there something about like, how do you survive? How have you survived as businesses and maintained this idea of creativity?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't bend. Like, I don't feel like I'm giving up. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything that I don't want to be doing. And I think, like, at the end of the day, like, it has to always be long-term vision. Like, so, like, for me, it's a stepping stool. Like, the only reason why I'm here is because of all the endeavors that I did undertake, and some that I may not be super stoked on, but like, at some point you have to put on a business hat. And, me and Brett talk about this at Neighbor all the time. It's like, hey man, someone's not going to buy a $15 smoothie. And he's like, no, they will do it. Like, it's the dopest. And then, we'll go back and forth and be like, okay, well, it's not selling. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Maybe we should change it. And I think like, as much as you want to do things that are super cool. And I've had these conversations with all these guys like, oh yeah, let's build this place. It'll be super vibey. Let's do it. And then we sit down and we talk about it. We're like, oh, actually, it'd be fun if we like had endless amounts of money and it was just a place that we wanted to like hang out. But that's not really always the case, right? And I think there is time for that, but like, we all have kids like Brett. I don't know.
But I feel like that also comes with experience because early on I was way more willing to like launch into an idea and attempt it and then have it fail or succeed. Whereas now I can analyze it beforehand and figure that out without actually going through the failure. So I think that as an entrepreneur and a creative, if you're if you're in that line of work for long enough, you're gonna have to adapt and you're gonna have to try different things and new things. It's really rare that somebody is doing one thing for their entire career and that remains the same. I mean, that just almost doesn't exist. So
for sure. You have to take a risk and you have to fail. And those are all developmental tools to where we go. And it's funny because Pete was just talking about this. I'm like, hey man, have people ever asked you about stuff? And he brings up Billy at Village. He's
I
like,
was just going to say, we should juxtapose this part with your story about Village.
And he told Billy like,
Bill, I've known Billy since he was a kid, and he we sat down before he started Village, and he was like, I've got this idea for ice cream that's like the best ice cream you've ever tried. and I was like, oh, that sounds good. And then he tells me the idea, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, that sounds great, but just I don't think you should do an ice cream shop in Calgary. I think it's the wrong market for it. It's a bad idea. Basically, shitting on his idea. But only because I'd seen my friend Matt start up Fiasco Gelato, and they were having a tough time in the winters in Calgary, and it was, it just seemed like it was, and then Fiasco's actually subsequently done really well. It took a little bit longer, but they got to a really good place, and I feel like at the time though, this was prior to that, and I was just witnessing how tough it was on them, and so that was my take on it. Obviously I was wrong, and Village was a great idea, and it's doing well, but that's why I'm not in the ice cream business, because I don't know shit about it.
Well, yeah, less accusatory.
Shout out to Guides Mint, Village Ice Cream Kiss. Like, yeah, Billy's killed it.
But that's the thing. Like, what's the difference between Village and a $15 smoothie? Right? Like, where's the creativity and the business? How do we know that? I mean, I guess you won't know until
you won't know.
You just don't.
You won't know.
It's interesting though. Like, so, I think we all know Billy here, but Billy is a great example of someone who really knows their numbers and is very analytical versus kind of going on a gut feeling. And
he's
Alan
a physicist.
Alan and I were talking about this the other day, and I would say, like, although I know my numbers, I go off of my gut for sure, and so it's just figuring out what works for you. On a smaller scale, like with ODB, in the market,
Sorry, I thought you meant like Old Dirty.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, all right.
We have tried different, grab and go foods that are a bit more exotic, and we've been lucky because we're right there getting feedback from the customers, and so you get them to try stuff, and then you need to push them on things a little bit, and it's like, if you liked this, then you're gonna love this, even though it might sound too exotic for you. But
yeah, and I think to that point, like, and maybe Rich and Pete feel the same way, but for me in our business, we're super fluid. Like, we're always talking about like, oh, okay, what's happening out there? Where are things changing? How can we pivot? Do we need to move? Is this too much? Should we look at this? And so we're continuously looking at our business and understanding that things evolve very quickly and move very quickly. And then in a boom bust city like Calgary, like, things do change and they change at rapid paces. And so we're always like cognizant of how things are moving. And sometimes our great ideas are not great ideas, and we're willing to walk away from them because and I think from an artist perspective, sometimes that's a lot harder, right? Because you pour yourself into these projects and you think they're worth this or they're that. But I would tell you, like, I have like no emotional attachment anymore to these things. Like, we try to deliver a value proposition, something that we believe in, and we hope the market responds. And that's how we approach it.
For sure. And I think that's something that another thing you learn as you go in entrepreneurship is that, you know, when you're young and when you start out, your entire being is tied to your business. And I think that you know, what I've learned is that you have to separate yourself, otherwise you'll drive yourself crazy. So it's a matter of you know, when you can get to that point, you can really make decisions that are wiser and smarter for the business oftentimes, because you're not so emotionally tied to things.
Like, do you guys find that affects you as creators? Right? I mean, you know, let's say with the music, over the years, do you feel like that might have, in retrospect, affected the way that you might produce a new track or approach?
Well, what I was going to say, another thing I was going to say is that at the end of the day, we're all in sales. I mean, so when you talk about a $15 smoothie, I mean, at the end of the day, if it's how you sell it. And if you know, if you put if you're the greatest salesman on the world in the world, you might be able to sell that $15 smoothie. You may not, but
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm throwing bread under the bus. There is no $15 smoothie. I don't know if there ever.
It's a great.
No, but maybe it has to be a smoothie window that only sells that smoothie.
Totally.
And you're
No,
telling
you're right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like there might be a way, but at the end of the day, you know, we're all in sales, and we figured out how to sell what we're producing, and part of that is, you know, the difference is we're creating what we're selling, and so it's the same thing with music as a commercial endeavor. I mean, we're creating music that we love, and we're in the lab, and sometimes things flow, sometimes ideas flow, and sometimes they don't. And so, you know, the creative process is one thing, but then once you finish that, it's a matter of using your brand to sell this product. And our brand is as Small Town DJs is, you know, we've been working at that for 20 years. And so when we finish some music, I mean, we basically try to land it with a label, try to get it to the right distribution so that people can hear it and people can access it. And then we got to put our sales hat on, and we're like, this is our product. This is what we came up with. I hope you guys like it. They may like it, they may not, but you know, the goal is to grow your following to the point where you're going to be able to like make a living, support your artistic endeavors. I mean, that's basically what we're all doing, and what a lot of entrepreneurs are doing is just, you know, I quit my day job in 2001, and my entire goal was to never have to go back to working 9 to 5. So I've worked my ass off to try to make that happen through creating things and turning ideas into, you know, into endeavors.
More of a 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. 9 to 5 wasn't long enough. Yeah. So.
I think all of us as just entrepreneurs, we have to believe in our own stuff, no matter what it is. If that is that $15 smoothie, and if it has doo-doo in it, we need to believe that. Like, I love this smoothie. This is the best smoothie ever. Yeah. It is worth $15. If I can't think that it's worth $15, no one's ever going to think that it's worth $15.
Totally.
Right? So you need us being these people in these positions. We need to love our stuff, and we need to put the passion back into what we're doing. Because, like I said, if we're not liking it, if we're not loving it, there's no one out there that will.
Yeah, and I'll add to
sound hokey.
Yeah, like for me, like when I go into the goat shop, it's not even just about the product. It's actually about the entire experience. It's about, you know, he gives me a sense of place where I can go, I can chat. You know, it's the entire journey of that experience that sometimes that I consider the value in. It's not just the product itself. And so when you talk about like what's it like to go into Our Daily Brett, what's it like to interact with someone, like there's so much option for collision, placemaking, safe haven, having conversations. And so like those are all value that I think oftentimes gets overlooked, and people try to compare, you know, product to product, and sometimes it's so much greater. And I think this goes into, you know, the artistry. Sometimes I'm not even concerned about the piece itself. I'm more concerned about the artist, the backstory, like how'd you get here, what inspired you, what makes this piece like so amazing to you. And I think that's where sometimes we overlook value. And so I think that definitely sets you to that next level when you're able to tell a story. Simon Sinek, the TED Talk, I don't know if you guys have all seen it or not, but he basically says you start with why. Like you tell your why, and that's what people connect with. And if you don't tell your why, oftentimes people will miss the connection. The why for the smoothie is not just because, it's a smoothie. It's because Brett went and sourced this shit himself, because he went to all these places. It's organic, it's local, it has meaning. And I think when you can tell that story, and, a lot of guys around this table have done a good job at that, is where people start to understand the value.
Can I shout out the falafel bowl at ODB? That's one of my favorite meals on the planet.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time, so I thought maybe just as a wrap up, it sounds like we're tending towards this idea of branding and marketing, but I kind of want to twist that to the idea of not so much where we've been or where Calgary is now, but where do we go next? So we brought up Copenhagen and this idea of these cultural like finding points in the globe. I want to believe that Calgary is capable of that, and hanging out with the artist and creative level that I'm at, I feel like, the talent and creativity in the city is amazing. It's legit. But from your perspectives, just as a final note, what do we have to do next? What is it that Calgary maybe either is missing, or that we need to kind of focus our energy in to keep this going, especially with all the, whether it's real or not, but all of the surface news shit about, the conservatives got in, so art's dead, or like we don't have enough people in Calgary, so move to another fucking city, or all of that negativity. What can we do to keep pushing to make keep getting that next little bit of growth in the city?
I as we just passed our election, and if we're going to touch base on that a little bit, we still have tons of segregation within the city, and with that segregation, I think segregation is rampant in the city in many different ways. From your sexual preference, there's a title. To your party that you stand with, there's a title. Your job is a title, and it's looking past these titles. You Pete has a title, Al has a title, Brett has a title, but I think looking past our titles and looking at ourselves as Calgarians first and foremost, and what that looks like to us as a whole. We're all sons and daughters of this city, and let's take care of that, of this city.
Yeah, I feel like right now is definitely a crucial time, and I honestly don't think that the election is going to make a huge difference in terms of people's day-to-days in the city. I think that it's been a difficult time in Calgary for the last few years, and that's not going to change overnight because the PCs came in. I think that what we are faced with right now is that it's more difficult now than it was 5 years ago to operate in Calgary as an entrepreneur and as a creative, and that's just the nature of the economy. Everything here is tied to oil and gas, and it it's not diversified enough for people to be totally successful without that industry thriving. But that being said, when you're operating on the as a creative and on the arts side, these are people that would almost 90% of them would be doing it, whether they were making money at it or not. And it's like that's what people are doing to survive and to thrive as a human. So it's like, I feel like on our side, we're dedicated to pushing and dedicated to keeping what we're doing going, and it's a matter of just for general personal happiness. So and that's kind of what I see from the other people in the city that are also working in the on the creative side.
Just a quick interjection before we get to the other side of the table, but I wonder, just listening so far, Rich brings up segregation, if that's something we need to tackle too, even in the creative industry, where theater people hang out with theater people, and visual artists hang out with visual people, and painters only hang out with painters. Like maybe we need to like find avenues or ways to bring them all together so that it's just a real melting pot, essentially, of even the creativity and the endeavors we have as a city.
I wouldn't know enough actually to talk about those because I don't know enough artists in all those different like fascinating fields. But to me it was funny. Like Kenny rode in on his blue truck, and one of our biggest standing jokes is like we're having our underground parkades are built on two F-150s having to be able to pass each other, and we're like, dude, like no one in the inner
That's
city.
how you guys build your parkades?
You have to. It's code. Like that's the requirement.
Like
the city standard is you have to be able to pass two F-150s
with the lift kit or
for the drive aisle to work. Yeah. And so I'm like, man, I'll take you to 10 inner city condos today, and you point out how many F-150s you see underneath there.
I'm surprised.
True,
I
would
have guessed more because
crazy.
They're everywhere.
Oh man, I absolutely like laugh at it every single time I meet with transportation. And so I think for me, it's like we can't get stuck in that. Like we need to understand that we need to innovate as a city, and we need to diversify. And I think the whole Kenny Fear excitement is kind of crazy to me. Like Pete said, like no one's going to fix our problems overnight. Like it's not going to happen. It's going to take time, and we're going to have to be smart and make smart decisions about how we want to grow as a city. And we got to double down. Like you don't get afraid because things aren't going the way you want them to go. Because like I said, things do take time. When you look at the vote and how it kind of laid out, I think it was like 53% of the popular vote voted that way. So we're really not that far off. There's still room there. We're talking about a 6% swing in the populist vote. There's tons of splitting, but there naturally is still division. And I think that's a good thing. And I think we need to continue to foster that and really push our elected officials to lead in the way that we see growth. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of natural gas and oil in our city. Like it is embedded in us. Like it's this stampede. Like it's going to be a fabric of who we are, but that doesn't mean we can't, innovate and be smart about how we diversify.
Well, and to Richard's point about segregation, I mean, we may live in a bubble. Like I basically spend most of my time in the Beltline area in downtown Calgary, but to me, one of our strengths about the city is the kind of cross-pollination and different groups that do end up working together, as opposed to the segregation side. Because oftentimes in a bigger city, you don't get that, where like I bump into these guys, a builder and a chef and a salon owner, and I feel like that's kind of a key to creativity is that. Because we have a smaller scene, and despite the city growing at a rapid rate, the core area is still quite a small scene. And I feel like part of the key to that is collaboration, and there's a lot of people that end up working together on unorthodox ideas and different type of endeavors because of that.
Brett, any last interjection?
Yeah, I think the city was built on entrepreneurship, and so I think all the entrepreneurs around this table, we're just gonna put our heads down and keep contributing however we can. And it feels like we're going in the right direction. It feels like there's a bit of density happening around the inner city, and it's kind of reaching out a little bit. And I'm excited by it. So.
I'll just add to that because Pete touched it and Brett touched it, and I talk about it every day. We got to build in, not out. A lot of our sustainable growth is through collisions, like Pete just said. Like it's seeing each other more frequently and colliding, and we reduce those opportunities as we continue to grow outwards. But if we reinvest back into our cities, we'll see more of these artistic, creative collisions and the ability to invest back into them because people are more connected.
I bring this story up a lot, but there was a PBS documentary about coffee, and it traces coffee's origin from Ethiopia and how it enters Europe, etc. But wherever coffee entered, whatever country, there was a cultural epoch because people would go to coffee houses to get this stimulant, but also stop drinking shit water and old wine. And people get elevated. So it went to Turkey first, and then it goes to Italy, and Italy it corresponds to the Renaissance, it goes to France, etc. And so it tracks coffee's correlation to culture. And while we don't have someone from Coffee or Village Ice Cream to defend himself, I think I agree with all of that. I think the idea that this table represents what Calgary is about, that we have maybe by title should be divergent industries And you guys all know each other, and you all support each other, and not just like high-fiving each other on the street, but you all seem to talk about where you're at, both as creators and as, well, not just both creators, business people, and human beings. No, there's a power there. I think that's why I love the city so much. I got to tie into it a little bit more and keep growing. Okay, I think Kyle's telling me I've overrun my 5 minutes by probably 20. I thank you all for coming and joining with me in your busy lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perspectives.
Dave, thanks, Kyle, man. It's great.
Any last interjections? No.
Pete will do the mic drop because he does it all the time.
Go Flames 2020.
Had to do it.
Oh, you send me so hard, baby. You're such a gracious love. Send me something in the close now. It's all a dream. Fall out from being blown to smithereens. I found sweet solace in your face. I found sweet solace in your face. Oh, you send me so high, baby. You're such a gracious love. Send me something in the it's a Chinese market now. You'd love their steamed bow. LOL. Have a drink for me at O'Hanley's. Right ginger press. Missing you greatly from all the rest in me. All the best.
The music you've been hearing is a track called Gracious Host. It's graciously given to us by Thomas Band. They've got a debut EP on Spotify under Thomas. 6 tracks, great listening, local talent. Check them out. Give them a play, give them a subscribe, give them your support. Thank you, Thomas, for setting the tone for this year's Perspectives YYC podcast. Here at Media Lab YYC, we help you share your stories with the public, video, audio, business, personal. Let us help you take your idea to the finish line.